Um, I had gotten my pay stub that says this is how much you're going to get paid tomorrow. And I was doing some budgeting, and it came down to paying for my groceries or paying for tithing. And I was like, okay, well, that settles it. I'm going to pay for my groceries, right? Because I've got to eat.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the feeling persisted. It did not go away. It was so clear, like, Kayden, pay your tithing, right? And I don't even know what made me decide it, but the feeling didn't go away. So I was like, okay, I'll do it. It was a lot to commit to for me. And my plan was I get tips at work. I'm just going to use the little in tips that I've got this week to pay for a couple small things that will help until I get paid next. And I'll see what this paying tithing does for me, you know? And so I was walking in to Walmart. I had like 15, maybe $20 saved up for a couple small things, right? And I was walking up there and I get that feeling like go back to your car. You got to look for some more money. And I went back and I was like looking in my car for like, any cash, I guess, and looking in cup holders, glove compartment, all that stuff. And I get this feeling, open up your center console. And I open up my center console and there are a wad of 20s in there. Exactly how much I had put away for tithing, I found right there in my center console.
We are back with another episode of the Convert Devotionals. This is Kayden. I am here with today. I found Kayden on Instagram. I have seen some really cool and uplifting videos from Kayden, and he has a very inspiring story that I am excited to hear about and the other people who are listening to hear about. So, hi, Kayden.
Hi, thanks for having me.
All right. Yeah. All right. Well, go ahead. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and we'll get into your story.
All right, a little bit about myself. Kayden. I grew up in Layton, Utah, born and raised there, and lived in Idaho for 4 years after high school, but now I'm back in Syracuse, Utah. Um, 24 years old. I don't know if I said that or not, but yeah, I left the church. Um, ooh, 6 years ago, and about a year and a half ago, I started coming back, and just a little bit of background.
Okay, so you're in Utah. Do you have a big family, small family? How many siblings do you have?
I have four siblings, or yeah, four siblings, and then two brothers-in-law. So pretty. I guess that would be
Okay.
considered a big family outside of Utah, but I'm in the middle. So I have a twin who's a minute older, but so I have an older sister, and then my twin, and then me, younger sister, and then a younger brother. And then, yeah.
Cool. Okay, so go ahead and I'm excited to hear your story. So you've got the floor. And
Okay, perfect. Well, yeah, like I said, I was born and raised in Utah. I was born and raised in the church. Most of my family is active still, and two of my sisters have gone on missions and stuff. So we're pretty devout. We're a devout family. I don't even know where exactly to start. I mean, in high school, I guess was where it started falling off for me. It was a combination of a few things. I was in some bad habits. I wasn't really surrounded by the best influences. I was in a relationship that wasn't really the best for me. All sorts of different things kind of played a role in that. When I was 15, I remember I'd come home. I was at home and it was me and my dad, and I kind of told my dad, I was like, "Hey, I don't know if I believe in the church anymore. I don't really want to I don't know if I really said I wanted nothing to do with it, but I did say I was just like, I want to stop going to church. I don't know if I believe in it." And
Mhm.
he said, kind of what parents say, you're going to go to church if you're living with me. And so that's kind of what it was until I moved out. But I wasn't for years I wasn't interested in it at all, but I was still actively going. When I moved out is when I went completely inactive, but in high school is when I like
Mhm.
kind of stopped caring.
Right.
But I remember, like I was saying, I was like in some bad habits, and I was like literally meeting with my bishop from, oh man, probably about 13 or 14 years old up until 18 when I like moved out. I as every couple weeks I would like meet with the bishop, and I remember a lot of times saying like I just don't know if I believe in this, and he would like, I don't know, I would get advice like this is kind of like saying kind of starting points for like how you lay in your own testimony. But as soon as I leave that bishop's office, I didn't care, you know? And that's
Mm.
just kind of how it was. So I just didn't really have my own testimony. And so
Right.
that's where it started for what the beginning of the end for me, you know, in terms of
Right.
my when I stepped away, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Um but yeah, in high at the end of high school, I moved up to Idaho with an ex of mine, and we both decided we're just like we're not going to go to church anymore, and so we didn't. And it was also it happened to be right at the start of COVID, 2020, so like
Mm.
churches were closed anyways, and even if we did want to go to church, like there was no real motivation to at that point.
Yeah, that was hard for a lot of people, I
Yeah.
think. COVID it if you had a testimony struggle or a faith crisis, I think it really shook it a lot. Not having to go to the building itself, not having yeah, I think it was a hard time for a lot of people.
Yeah,
So,
for
go
sure.
ahead.
When me and her broke up, it was I kind of got these feelings every now and then to like, hey, maybe you should go to church, right? And I had met with like some ward missionaries up there a couple times, and I like went to church, but I would like just sit in the foyer and stuff, and I had like no, I didn't really feel anything, you know. It was just kind of like I was just wasting my time every Sunday, I felt like,
Mhm.
right? So that was another really hard thing for me was I don't know, I just didn't feel a lot there. And thinking about it, it was probably because I wasn't like putting in effort on my end. I was kind of thinking if God has something in store for me, it'll happen kind of thing. And that's to a point, but at the end of the day, we all have we have to put in our own effort if we want to learn things for ourselves, you know. I moved up to Idaho Falls. That's where I moved up into Idaho, and a couple years after that I moved down to Pocatello with some friends. And that was when things kind of took a turn in terms of like my personal life and like spirituality, because I don't want to say I didn't have a relationship with God. It just wasn't centered around an organized religion. But when I turned 21, I do what 21-year-olds do, and I start drinking. And that's kind
Mhm.
of where my spirituality also fell off. It wasn't anything crazy, like it was just social. And I remember I told myself if I ever get to a point where I'm drinking the night before I'm like working, right, then it's probably a problem. And I also around that time had learned that alcoholism ran in my family genetically on my mom's side. She's adopted, and so we had learned
Mhm.
around that time that it ran in her family, and I was trying to be careful with it. But when it did get to that point of like I was drinking on nights that I was working or nights before I was working and stuff, I didn't really stop.
Right.
And it was hard for me to just have a
Right. To have, like, 1 beer or to
yeah,
have
yeah,
I'm a recovered alcoholic, so
mhm,
I can totally understand. So
yeah,
I totally get it. You can't just have 1 beer, you can't just have that 1 drink,
yeah.
or everyone else is like, "Oh, I'm good right now," and you're like, "Oh, well, I'm gonna open a drink right
Yeah,
now, and I'm gonna drink."
if there's drinks at the event, I'm drinking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's how it was. And another unfortunate thing for me was I wasn't a beer fan, so I went straight
Mhm.
to like the hard liquors and stuff,
Yeah.
and that
Yep.
doesn't help. That doesn't help. But yeah, yeah, and I don't know For a couple of years, there was absolutely no desire in me to have any sort of relationship with a deity. I mean, I had some friends that were other faiths, and I had some coworkers, other faiths too, and like we would talk about it sometimes, and I'm just like, it's just not for me. I was fully atheist at this point. I did not believe in a God at all. And that was for a number of reasons, from things I had struggled with, really trials. Like, I mean, I feel like I don't want to bash on anyone's experiences, right? But like, it's kind of a common thing for with atheists to be like, if God is real, why do these things happen? And that was a lot of my thinking for a
Right.
couple years.
Yep.
So that was
Mhm.
a really hard thing for me to work
Mhm.
around. Around, I want to say 2023 was when I started. There would be mornings that I was waking up, um, like some Sunday mornings, I'm waking up hungover with the feeling, go to church, Kayden, go to church, right? And I did. I did. I would get up reluctantly and get dressed and go to church. But it was the same thing as like back before I was drinking. It was the same thing. I wouldn't even sit in the chapel sometimes. I'd just be in the foyer. I would sit on my phone. I wouldn't be paying attention to the talks at all. And I mean, I wouldn't even take the sacrament, nothing like that. I was just sitting there, and then I would go home. And around this time too, I wasn't just drinking, I was, smoking, smoke. I smoked weed, I vaped, never did any
Yeah.
cigarettes or anything, but I was smoking, right? Just really in a dark place, like, I don't know, I was just going through the motions, and then I'd get off of work and I'd start smoking, I'd drink, I'd go to sleep, and I'd do the same thing 3 or 4 nights a week at least. That was my schedule. 2023 was when I was getting those.
Real quick, Aiden, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you.
No,
I
no.
do want to give you kudos for going to church when you were hungover. First of all, hangovers are the absolute worst thing
Yeah,
on the
yeah,
planet. You know, like anyone who had a hangover, it's like, I don't know why you just don't stop drinking, but we still don't. Like, we'll still drink no matter how bad your hangover is. I know that you didn't feel anything when you went those few times, but I do think it's really still, it shows a lot about who you are that you still went and you still went through the motions. I know it wasn't what you were expecting, but I think that's really great of you.
yeah. No, thank you for that. Yeah, no, I mean, that's kind of how it is. You just do what you know, and then hopefully you can build something off of that. And
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that I'm sitting here talking to you today, I was able to build something from that. But like,
Yeah.
in that moment, I was just like, this is a huge waste of my time. Like, I could be doing so many better things. It even got to a point where I got the feeling to go to church every now and then, that so much that I stopped working on Sundays, just
Mm.
in case I
Mhm.
did decide to actually invest the time that day to go to church. And then at some point you got to put your own effort in, right? And
Right.
um that's what I decided to do in 2024. I remember I woke up on New Year's Day hungover, and I was just like, I can't keep doing this. 2024, I turned 23, and I still had no direction in whether it was, in my life, I didn't really have direction, but also in terms of spirituality and like what I believed in, and I just woke up, and it was just like this thing. The months leading up to New Year's Day in 2024, that was probably the most I ever felt like it's time to it's time to get your beliefs in line. Like, you've got to learn what you actually believe about things that, people just don't really like. I mean, people in my life just didn't really think. It wasn't something that was on our minds ever. What happens after we die? It was kind of like, we live and whatever happens, happens. But I needed to know, right? And the only way
Yeah.
I knew how to learn was to go to church. So that Sunday went to church, and that's where the change happened. I stopped. I actually sat down in the chapel, If I had my phone out, I was taking notes. Anything that came to mind, I took some notes on. And I even went to second hour. That was terrifying for me, for mainly just like the social aspect of it. I get so nervous meeting new people, but like I went to second hour, and yeah, I sat in the back, but I was there and I was listening, right?
Well, and then you're probably, like, reluctant because you know that they're gonna be like, "All right, we've got a visitor today," or "Who's
Yeah.
this new guy?" So you're
Yep.
like, "I just wanna go and not be talked to. Like, I don't want you guys to know who I am.
Yep.
Just let
No.
me be." I totally get
Yeah,
that. I
for
totally
sure.
get that.
And like even in that meeting, that first meeting, the person that was sitting next to me, he was in the bishopric. And he handed me a
Okay.
little slip of paper that was like, "Hey, he was like, "Hey, I don't recognize you, but fill out this little paper, right?" And it was like a little like, "My name is blank." And I don't
Yeah.
know, there were a couple other questions, but like I filled it out and I gave it to him and I was like, "Here you go." And that was, I mean, I don't even know what they ended up doing with that, but either way, even filling out that little paper for more people to know me, that was terrifying. I was like, because I don't even
Yeah.
know if I'm gonna keep going to church. I don't even know if I'm gonna keep going to this church, that kind of thing. He's a cool guy though. We're friends, and that was the first interaction I had with him. But yeah, that was kind of the start of me going back to church. So I started going to church, but during the week I would keep doing my thing. I still drank, I still
Mm,
smoked, all these things. I wasn't fully committed yet. And it was really quickly that went from, I don't even think it was a full week before I realized I can't go to church on Sunday and then come home and start drinking and smoking and doing things that the church is against. And that's not how you
yeah.
build a relationship with God. So it was
Mhm.
definitely within a week or two of me starting to go back that I decided, okay, I've got to sober up and actually try. I can't just try on Sundays. So yeah, that next Sunday though was a big turning point for me. I had got stuck in the snow leaving for church that morning. I backed up and then I got stuck in the snow, and it was funny. I took a picture of my car, and I was like, "Uh-oh, looks like someone really doesn't want me to go to church today," implying Satan doesn't want me to go to church that day. And looking back, that's
Right.
exactly what it was, right? Because this Sunday is the one that absolutely changed my life. So, anyways, I was stuck in the snow, and I had some members actually from another ward come and help me out. But I ended up being like 15 minutes late to church that day. And so I missed like morning announcements, and every week, so we were in a YSA ward, or I was going to a YSA ward, and Pocatello's mostly, at least the part of Pocatello I was living in was like college town, right? Idaho State University is
Mm,
there, so most people were students in my ward, right? And every
mhm.
Sunday we would do a ward family prayer where we would study Come Follow Me and then pray, and then we'd have some games or refreshments or something like that. So I was going to those. I went for a couple weeks, and then this had happened. But I missed the morning announcements, and the morning announcement said that there wasn't going to be ward prayer. Instead, it was going to be a devotional, right? So I had no clue that there was going to be a devotional, but I was fully prepared to like go to this ward prayer. And I had work that day, and I was like, it's fine because I'll get off of work and then I'll just go right over for ward prayer. And we don't need to be dressed up. I can just be in my casual clothes for that. But that's what I was planning on doing.
Right.
And so I get off of work and I go over to the church, and the parking lot's packed. Like, this is a stake devotional. And I'm over here in my sweats on my hoodie, and people are walking in their Sunday best because it's a devotional. And I sat in my car for like 10 minutes. I was like, I cannot go in there. Absolutely cannot go in there. That's so embarrassing. Sat in my car for like 10 minutes, and I was just like, not gonna go in there. But I sucked it up a little bit, and I went in, and I just sat in the foyer as people were coming in. And then some sister missionaries walked up
Mhm.
to me, and they asked if I was, "Hey, are you so and so?" And I wasn't so and so. I don't know who so and so was. But apparently they had called someone and invited him to the devotional, and they thought that I was that person, and I wasn't, but they were talking to me for a few minutes, and they were like, "Oh, are you gonna come in?" And I was like, "Oh, I wasn't planning on it because I'm dressed like this, and I didn't know that this devotional was going on. I don't want to go inside because I'm not really dressed to go inside right now." And they're like, "Oh, like come on, we'll sit with you." And I was hesitant to say yes to that because I know missionaries love to like go out and socialize before it starts. I'm like, you guys are gonna like go sit in the front or something. You guys like, I'm not
Oh, yeah.
gonna walk up there in my sweats to the front of the chapel. Like I just that wasn't what I wanted to do. And they're
Yeah,
like, "Oh no, we'll sit in the overflow with you. Do you want to do that?" And I was like, "Okay, fine."
right.
So I agreed and I sat down by them. And this devotional, I mean, I probably still have notes for it in my phone. Like this, it was so good. I was writing nonstop. I don't even remember who it was, but it was some sister who I think was like maybe she was on the young women's presidency or something like that. But I know she was the one who had the calling, and then her husband was just there also talking, right? Whereas normally it's like an elder and then his wife, right? It was the other way around. But her husband was talking, and he talked
Oh,
about
cool.
the blessings of tithing and like miracles that he had seen in his life pertaining to tithing. And that whole time that he was talking, he talked about this one time he had to pay a couple $100s for I think it was a repair or something, and he was really stressing out about it. And the next day his work had actually said, "Hey, we actually haven't paid you as much as we should have. Here's what we do owe you." And it was like the exact amount that like, he paid the day before. And his whole spiel was like, if you pay tithing, you're going to be blessed, right? That was the central topic of his talk. And that was probably the first time I'd ever, well, I was going to say it was the first time I'd felt prompted by the Spirit to do something in years.
Right.
But leading up to that point, I was, being prompted to go to church every now and then. I just didn't recognize that to be like the Spirit.
Right. Right.
But that's where that was probably the scariest prompting I ever got, because as he was talking, I just kept getting that feeling like pay your tithing this week, and that was the most terrifying thing because I've been only going to church for a couple weeks. I still didn't know if I even wanted to keep going. And I was just like, I don't know if I want to commit 10% to this church that I'm still struggling with. But that feeling didn't go away after I left that night. And I really think every day leading up to my payday, I just kept getting that feeling, pay your tithing this week, right? And so it got to be like Wednesday or Thursday, and I was like, okay, I got to see how much I'm getting paid before I decide, right?
Mhm.
Because the fact is, I'm like, I'm an adult, I'm living on my own, I've got bills to pay. Like, I can't just outright commit this kind of money. But um, I had gotten my pay stub that says this is how much you're going to get paid tomorrow. And I was doing some budgeting, and it came down to paying for my groceries or paying for tithing. And I was like, okay, well, that settles it. I'm going to pay for my groceries, right? Because I've got to eat. But the feeling persisted. It did not go away. It was so clear. Kayden, pay your tithing, right? I don't even know what made me decide it, but the feeling didn't go away. So I was like, okay, I'll do it. I will. And even talking about it, I get that anxious feeling back, of
Mhm.
how I felt when I got that feeling, right? It was a lot to commit to for me, right?
Right.
But I was like, okay, I'll do it. And my plan was I get tips at work. I'm just going to use the little in tips that I've got this week to pay for a couple small things that will help until I get paid next. And I'll see what this paying tithing does for me. And so I was walking in to Walmart. I had like 15, maybe $20 saved up for a couple small things. And I was walking up there and I get that feeling like, go back to your car. You got to look for some more money. And I'm like, at this point in my life, I'm freakishly obsessed with my finances.
Mhm.
At any point in time, I know down to the penny what I have in my account, what I have in cash, that kind of thing. So I got that feeling. I'm like, I know like how much money I have. This is it. This $15, this is it. But I went back and I was like just like looking in my car for like, any cash, I guess, and looking in cup holders, glove compartment, all that stuff. And I get this feeling, open up your center console. And I open up my center console and there's a wad of 20s in there. Exactly how much I had put away for tithing, I found right there in my center console.
Wow.
And that was I started crying right there. I think that's where people ask me what was the moment that you committed to like the church and just really committing to the gospel, and when did you decide to come back? And it wasn't 3 weeks ago when I decided to start going to church. It wasn't a week or two before that when I started to quit drinking. It was right then and there when I opened that glove compartment and I saw that money.
Yeah. That's really
And yeah, and I don't know, to this day, I don't know if that was a miracle or if maybe I had just misplaced some money, but either way, it taught me the lesson of like listening to the spirit. It taught me blessings that can come from paying tithing, right? And that's all that really matters to me, you
yeah.
know, is just that lesson it taught me. I have this really good friend up in Idaho who has really been there for me. I met her right when I first moved up there, and she's been there with me for every step of the way. And she's who I go to every time I want to talk about anything gospel related, whether it's like, I don't know, she's who I go to, right? And when this happened, I texted her. I'm like, you would not believe what just happened. I can't remember what I said. It was all kind of a blur. I was just like so in shock of what had just happened. But I remember texting her and I'm just like, I have no choice. I'm fully committed now. I can't turn back, right? And it was just, yeah, I mean, that was the big moment for me. But you can't rely on one big moment for the rest of your life. As it doesn't matter how big that is. We all have to do what it takes to keep that testimony growing.
Right.
So daily scriptures, daily prayer, like all the primary answers, really, right?
Right.
Um, I love 2024 was really good. I mean, any year that I go back to church would have been a good year, but 2024 specifically was an awesome year to come back because Come Follow Me was the Book of Mormon.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
I'd never read the Book of Mormon on my own. I remember doing scripture study as a family, but I'd never sat down and read it from cover to cover on my own. And I got to do that last year. And that was a big part of it as well, was gaining my testimony of the Book of Mormon. All of that is kind of what leads me here. It's what kind of led me to making my own church page, and it led me to, I got my patriarchal blessing a year and a half ago that changed my life as well. Um, and yeah, all those little things built up to bigger things, just like stepping stones.
It's probably those small and simple things that motivated you to go online and start sharing your testimony.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Small and simple things is really what led me here. I think it's really cool. I don't know if you see this. I'm sure you do, making, this podcast and content online and stuff. It's something I've noticed since coming back to churches. Like, this is a growing theme among members of the church, and I don't think that that's a coincidence. It's not just a coincidence that all these people are starting to make LDS content,
No,
right?
no.
Like, that's purely because I think to when I started, I didn't start this page because I wanted to go viral or because I wanted to make funny reels. I started this page because I felt called to.
Yep.
And it was and I wouldn't say it's as extreme as the paying tithing, but it was a scary prompting to get
Yep.
because I'm not really, like I said, I'm not really a social person. I like to keep to myself, and putting myself out there what is a terrifying thing. I made this page and probably had it up for 2 months before I even posted a video
Oh, really?
because I was just terrified of what other people might think of me. I see the comments on other people's pages and I'm just like, I can't personally handle that. I had to hold myself back from like fighting in my comment section about like
My gosh, and you'll
this
always
or that.
find them in the comment section. You will always get
Yep.
hate no matter what.
Yeah.
But the truth is, and this is what I came to the realization is that it doesn't matter what you say and what you do, they're not gonna change their mind. All we can do is
Yeah.
just spread positive and just hope that it reaches good people that need it, you know?
Yep. Yeah. Unfortunately, that's the case for social media.
Yeah,
I actually have most of my coworkers are either inactive or never were members.
yeah,
Um, and like we have, I think when you're talking face to face with someone, it's a lot more understanding than
yeah.
Instagram comments would be, right? But when I see, like, obviously there's some comments that I see that I'm like, this is a silly straw man. Like, you clearly don't know what you're talking about, kind of thing. But there's some comments that I'm, you know what? 3 years ago, I believed that. I get your point of view,
Yes.
but this is my experience. And that's kind of what I like with my account is I feel like I can sympathize with some experiences, right?
Agree with that, and it's one of those things where you're living it. You're living it. So,
Yeah.
you talking about it is one thing, but living it is totally different, and I think that shows way more than just talking about it. I was
Sure.
gonna ask you, so one last question is, what advice would you give to some
The best thing to keep in mind is to know that you're not alone. Like I said, I know some experiences people don't have someone to reach out to. If you know in your heart, well, if you have that desire in your heart to know the truth, God is willing to give you that truth. You just have to reach out. That's something that I was able to teach on a lot, especially with my experiences this summer at FSY, was Jesus Christ is always extending his hand out to you. It's just a matter of us reaching out and grabbing it. A lot of people might think these terrible things have happened, so God must not be there. But I think it's in those moments where God wants you to reach out the most. However, you reach out the best, whether it's reading scriptures or praying, or sometimes even just if you feel God most when you're in nature and
Yep,
you're in a really dark space right now, go take a hike. Just reach out the best way you know how to, and then God is there for you.
go to church with a hangover.
Yeah. Yeah.
For real.
Yeah.
That's
That'll change some things
I
for
love
sure.
that about your story. I love that about your story. I just think it's so cool that you were like, "Nope, I was hungover and is not feeling good, but I had the urge and I went." So,
Pop a Tylenol. I had some
yeah.
Tylenol in my car for nights like that, right? I always had some Tylenol in my car. Yeah, take one and walk in the church building. It goes back to the quote that everyone says. It's like church isn't for,
It's not a it's like a hospital
yeah,
for
a hospital isn't for healthy people.
yes,
Something like that, right? Yeah,
place
so
for sinners, yeah.
yep, exactly. Like we're all sinners regardless of our experiences, and that's an important thing to know as well.
I was just listening to just like on a reel and another influencer he said so my stake president got up this was like a year ago he said and announced he said I've been having complaints that there's a primary teacher that's coming to teach primary and he or she smells like cigarette smoke and we've had some complaints but I want to make it very clear that this person is in the right place and please don't judge.
Yeah.
And some of the comments are like was one of them was how did he say it? He said if all of our sins smelt like cigarette smoke, we'd have to air out the church. We wouldn't even be there.
Oh,
You know what I mean? Like if
yeah.
all of our sins, like it doesn't matter. We all have something that anyway, I just thought that was so cool. I didn't even give it justice how how he said it.
No, I love that.
Yeah, go
That's
to church
good
anyway.
though. Yeah.
Go to church anyway. Go to church how you how you do it. So that's what I got from your story too, was go to church however you are. That's what he wants us to
Yep.
do. Come as you are. So
Come as you are, not stay as you are, but
that's
definitely
right.
are. Yep, and you're gonna be changed.
That's right.
Yep.
Awesome, Kaden. I'm so glad I got to have you on. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks for having me. This
Yeah.
was really good. Yeah.
Good.